15. Cash up front.
Deal.
Deal.
Mikey, ma'am, listen. You did your thing on this movie. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
I know that Sean basically knew that he kind of wanted to write this role for you. He knew that he found his Annie. I'm curious when you found her. When did you know you had her? What point in the pre-production did you like, okay, this is her?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think, I was so nervous about this film, and I have never had an experience where a director has, written a role for me. So I feel like I overcompensated by the amount of preparation I did, physical preparation, research, emotional preparation. And so I think I got to set I got to Brighton Beach, and I knew that I knew everything about my character. I didn't leave any question unanswered. But as an actress, I was still feeling insecure, and I think it's finally when I had on the costume and the pleasers and the nails, and I was in hair and makeup, that everything just kind of clicked into place in a different way, Yeah. Because I think when you're in costume too, it's that cherry on top of you start moving differently because of the clothes you're wearing, and the nails on your hands make you want to move your hands in a different way. And so to me, I think that's when I was okay, I feel that this is who she is,
Yeah, and I do appreciate, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I saw basically a video of somebody recounting you talking about this role, and I think they said, yeah, she was talking about she went to stripper camp. So what was your favorite memory from stripper camp, as it were, or what you got to do when you were doing that?
I mean, I'm just a broken record by saying this, but I have fallen in love with the sex work community. And I think I honestly went into all of my research quite naively. I didn't really know much about what that line of work was like. So I went to clubs, and I was trained by a really amazing dancer based in LA, Kennedy Schneider, who is a fantastic dancer. And she taught me everything from just basic pole training to twerking to club chat. And I don't know, that was really impactful for me because I am definitely not a dancer. So I would say that was pretty memorable, but gosh, I don't know. I've met so many incredible women who were brought on as consultants too, and talking with them was amazing.
Well, this person was recounting the screening that you organized. And then I just have to say, there's a video of them clapping with their heels for you that is just, I'm like, that should be in the Smithsonian. Talk about that moment, because I heard you organized it, right? You wanted to do that. So yeah, what gave you that brainchild, and then how fun was that?
Oh my gosh, the best day of my life, basically. That was something I wanted to do for a really long time, and when it came together, I was so excited and nervous to premiere our film for all of these incredible people that I admire so much. And yeah, no, I remember we walked into the screening room, and all of these girls are giving us a round of applause by clapping their pleasers together, and I was like, this is unreal. I can't believe this is happening. I feel very unworthy. The love that we received from that community has been so meaningful to me. I think perhaps one of the most meaningful experiences I've had since the movie is being brought out into the world. I've been thinking about that night a lot. I would love to do another screening soon.
Oh, girl, there'll be plenty of screenings in between now and then. You'll have to do it on both coasts. So, you did New York, now you got to do LA.
I need to do one in New York.
Yeah. You need to do New York and LA. Other thing I was just going to say, too, I do love that it's certified fresh with not only critics, but also with the women of the sex worker/dancer community. I love that you get those great reviews.
The stamp of approval from two amazing places.
Exactly. I will say you also, I think, get the enviable moment of this is a Cinderella story, and you really do get to be wooed by some pretty handsome pseudo Prince Charmings and then eventual Prince Charmings. But talk about the chemistry you developed with Mark, and then also, the other relationships that sort of play out throughout the film, and how y'all develop that, because it does feel very intimate, even outside of the intimate scenes, and it also feels like a real realistic love story.
I tried to get to know Mark as much as I could before filming, and then we got to know each other like on a deeper level while we were working. But he's such an interesting person, and you think that you know him, and then you discover something else that completely surprises you. And so it was very disarming to work with him too. He's a very sharp, intellectual person. He's similar to his character in all of the good ways, you know what I mean? Like that incredible, vivacious, like just youthful energy that he brings to the movie is so Mark. And to be in the presence of that is such a wonderful feeling. He's so special. It's easy to love him, you know? And then with Yura, he's so soulful and funny and sweet. Like, he was constantly taking care of me on set. Like, I twisted my ankle and he would be like wrapping it or icing it, and I broke my acrylic nail off with the real nail underneath during one of the fight scenes, and so he carried a bottle of like medical glue in his pocket and was like gluing it on every morning and night. So he just was always, I always felt that he was there, like protecting me in some way, which I think probably was...
It was meta.
Well, I think that it was a specific choice on his end. I just didn't realize it at the time. But yeah, he works in a very different way than I do, but he really immerses himself in the character and the world in a way that I don't think I realized until we were done filming.
Oh, that means that it was really good, though. That means
it does.
That means it was working that sauce. I'm glad you brought up the fight, because Sean said he saw you in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and then later in Scream, and that's when he knew. My headcanon is that when he saw you getting kind of the whooping put on you in Once Upon a Time, although you gave as good as you got, I will say that.
Thank you.
I think he knew that you had the whooping that you could put on these boys for that fight scene. Like, that's my headcanon. I'm like, as soon as he saw you towards the pool scene, he was like, this girl is about to wreck up 3 dudes. So, like, did that experience help you with this experience? Because I feel they're very similar.
I do think that him seeing me be so physical in all of these stunt scenes probably helped me to get this role, so I'm very grateful for that experience. It's a very strange sort of pocket of characters that I got into playing, of like playing these very kind of antagonistic type of roles and very physical characters as well, because it's so unlike who I am.
As everyone has said.
But yeah, I think that me having a bit of like stunt training also in my back pocket was really helpful for me too.
And I just have to do it because he's talked about Quentin so much, and then I was just thinking about you. It's like you've worked with the incredible directors you worked with on Better Things, and then obviously that was shepherded by a kind of an icon in her own respect. Mm-hmm. And then now you've worked with Sean, you've worked with Quentin. I would love for you to maybe compare those two directors, because they both have very particular styles, and I think you're, one of the few people that's worked with both. And like, what would you say is the biggest contrast or similarity between them as directors? Because they're indie kids. Like, they're part of that really like indie sort of thing, but they're very different with how they do things. But they've both chosen to focus and highlight you in pretty big parts of their movies. Yeah,
they're both amazing, like, pioneers of independent cinema. And I think they both have a very specific, distinct style and vision and language as well. They both have a very distinct humor, I think, that goes with their scripts that is so Quentin and so Sean. So I think that they're similar in the way that they have such precise visions for what they want to do. And they're both very passionate people. And you'll talk to them, and it's like, I thought that I was a cinephile. And then I will talk to Quentin or Sean, and I'm like, oh, I know nothing. Sean's talking to me about this, like, he's like obscure, like 70s Japanese, like, sexploitation film, and he's like, you've never seen that? I'm like, where would I see that? Yeah, so they're both actors, directors, as well too. They both work really well with actors, but yeah, I'm so lucky that I've been able to have that experience with them.
if I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
Sean, congratulations on the film. I'm so excited for it. And I love how you said in this one, again, it's about your incredible casting. You found Mikey, which is such a great find. And I know you said it was from watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What about her performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood made you think, oh, this can be my Annie? Like, what did she show you in that moment that made you say, oh, this is where she can go next?
Well, she really captured my attention with that film. I thought she stole the last 15 minutes of the movie. I went back to see it again, and I even went back a third time just to watch that scene. She really intrigued me because I'm always, I always keep my eyes open for, for new talent, for fresh talent, and it was really so. She was in my head. But then I saw Scream, and it was actually the combination of those two performances. I was in Scream. I know, she was intense in both roles. She could scream, and she showed me she could scream in both roles. But there was also, she was playing a young adult in Scream, one with a lot of attitude, one that could hold her own in a fight. And, well, it was really just that combo that made me say she's the one. And plus, she has a very interesting physicality, very interesting eyes. I knew we could shoot her in a very interesting way. And we made that decision in the theater while watching Scream. I turned to my wife and producer, Samantha, and I said, we're calling her reps the second we step out of the theater.
Wow.
And we did.
I mean, I know that is the case because I know, like, with Susanna, you saw her at the ArcLight, and you were like, no, I need your number today. Like,
yeah, sometimes you just know. It's that it factor. You look at the person, and it's a combination of their physicality and their persona, and you're like, I want to see more of this person on the big screen. This person deserves to be on the big screen. Everyone deserves to be on the big screen, but there's something that says there's a star quality here.
And I would say that's true because all of the faces you put in this, even people like Karen, who you seem to kind of like magic into a different character every single film, you're really casting them in what you think they would work for, and sometimes it's not what other people would see. So even like established actors like Yura or Mark, they've done other things, but you're putting them in a very different character. So how do you do that? How do you place them outside of what many people would see them?
Well, one of the, when a seasoned professional actor, they have range. Yeah. They have range. And I think Hollywood forgets that, and they pigeonhole certain actors. I mean, people still tell me, oh, we're so happy you didn't make Willem Dafoe another crazy villain in Florida Project. We saw him in a different way. I'm like, oh, I always knew it was obvious he had range. So that's how I look at it. I look at like just exploring another aspect of their persona with these characters. Now, when it comes to those two, Mark and Yura, my God, they come from like a really intense training background in Russia, and so they were so experienced that they were giving me gold with every take. Because they would give me alts with every take, like alternative performances or little nuances in their performance that gave me something new, something as an editor. I had so much, I had my I had a lot of choice there, and so this is the first time that primarily my main cast and most of my supporting cast are seasoned, trained professionals, and I really loved it. It was a pleasure. It's a
different flavor for you. I mean, but even with them, like I said, like you look at somebody like Mikey and you're doing something different with her. And I love that you had to ask a lot of her between learning broken Russian, not perfect Russian. You sent her to stripper camp and you made her learn about exactly what it was going to be like to be in that vibe.
I remember the day she contacted and said, I know how to twerk now. I'm like, cool, great. But also, taking on the New York accent, getting to the point where she was literally she was co-creating those dances. Wow. And she gets credit in the film for that.
I do love that. Choreographer on top of everything else. Yep. Well, what would you say was the most challenging thing that you had to ask of her in this preparation to bring Annie?
I think it's a very physically demanding role. I asked her to take on a coach for the dancing and the pole dancing specifically, but I had no idea she was going to be that committed. I mean, 3 to 4 months of pole dancing lessons, and she's only on the pole for about 20 seconds in the film.
But she was fabulous.
But it transformed her in many ways, and it got her confidence level there up so that she could actually then choreograph a dance. So there's that, and then also I asked her to really do the research with us. We had consultants on the film. Andrea Warehun was our chief consultant, and Mikey spent a lot of time with her, Zooming with her, picking her brain. And then she was shadowing dancers at the club. She spent time with us at the club, observing. I mean, really to the point where I was able to shoot improv scenes with her, and she had so much information that she was able to basically be giving me exposition through her improv. So she really got to the place where she understood the mechanics of that world and understood Annie.
The other thing I really want to talk about is this scene that you put in it. For folks that aren't as familiar with your filmography, they're not familiar with the, as Karen put it, organized chaos that you love to direct and orchestrate. Right. But that scene in the house, that is actually one where I think the writing was really key, because she shows that she has not only been in this world, she is seasoned by this world. And so when these guys think they're going to overpower her, she's like, you think you're the first guy to try to overpower me? Let me show you. Like, was that always in the writing there, where she was always going to be this like honey badger of attack?
Honey badger.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you. That's exactly how I see her. Who wants to see, a passive character in that role? No, we want somebody who is battling against, her oppressors, and like this moment that is this very scary incident that she's a part of. I want to see her, fight against it. And she so I always saw her as a scrapper. I always saw her as like a young New Yorker with full of attitude and able to, hold her own both verbally and physically. And that was in the script. And Mikey just embodied that. I don't know, have you interviewed Mikey?
I have, but I interviewed her like once when she was doing like Better Things. And it was like she was so young, it was just very different.
Well, she's soft spoken. She's actually a little shy. Very, very different from Annie. Yeah. And but I knew she expressed that she couldn't wait to embody Annie. And over that first meeting I had with her, and I saw that enthusiasm, and I saw the range. I saw the range from Once Upon a Time and Scream, and I just knew she could do it. And I had very high expectations, and she far exceeded them.
I have to ask you about this as someone that's been a fan of your entire filmography. Is you've done this incredible thing where you will take marginalized people, a lot of them working in and around the sex industry, and you will give them a sort of everyday man hero moment, and it's sort of the ordinariness of these folks that I find to be the most cinematic and interesting about what you do. And I'm curious, like, has that always been your approach, or was it spending time with these people that influenced that? And I think so. It's about time, and you really have to spend the time to no matter who you're focusing on, whether it's a microcosm or a subculture or whatever, spending time to understand, hear their stories, know that you've absorbed enough that you are confident that your representation will be respectful, and that that involves a lot: consultants, becoming friends, And so in this case, I remember. Actually, I'll be very brief, but with my first film about sex work, called Starlet, back in 2012. What really sparked that was I was on the set of a television show, and there was a cameo by an adult film star. And at one moment, I overheard her say to her friend, "Oh, damn, I left my laundry in the washer. I forgot to put it in the dryer. It's going to be sour when I get home." And I'm like, that's the most everyday thing. That happens to everybody. Everybody has to deal with one of those days. And when she said that, I was like, that's so, I want to work that into a film, because that again is what makes somebody human. It grounds somebody, and it allows audiences to connect and see themselves in those little life moments, right? And I think that's what started it. And I brought that on to every film since.